Hello everyone and welcome back to the finals of the Magnus Carlsen Invitational. It's Anish, Giri versus Nepomniachtchi, and this is the second game of the second match. So the first four games of the first match ended in a draw, and the first game ended in a draw here in the second match where Nepo had the white pieces. It was a pretty feisty Sicilian, and now where Giri has the white pieces, we will again have the Sicilian. So a bit of a Sicilian contest between the two of them, and this is a pretty crazy game. So without further ado, let's check it out. Giri opens with e4, and as we said, Jan replies with c5. We have the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, e6, and now d4. Striking in the center, we have captures on d4, knight captures, and the knight to c6 now. We have knight to c3 and queen to c7. Now going for the Bastrikov variation of the Taimanov, we have bishop to e3 and now a6. And this position has been reached thousands of times with moves like, for example, queen d2 or bishop to d3. There are over 2,500 top tier games in the database featuring just those moves, but there are many other moves as well. But the move Giri chooses is a very rare one. He plays g4 here, and it's not a new move, but it's an extremely rare move. Only a handful of games featuring this move. And now he asks Jan, do you know how to deal with this? And okay, Jan continues with h6. There is a few games where b5 was played, but the move Jan plays h6 has never been played before, so already as a move 7 we have a completely new game. So Giri continues marching those pawns forward on the king's side. He wants to play g5 and knight to f6 now. We have knight captures on c6, b captures on c6, now setting up for this very nice central thrust with d5, and queen to f3. The queen will also support d5 from here, and the white is planning to castle queen side. So d5, why not, if white allows it, and g5 now. Attacking that knight, we have captures, and now, of course, captures. We have queen captures on h1, and knight to g4, putting pressure on Anish's bishop here on e3, bishop back to d2, not allowing this trade, knight for bishop, and now just bishop to b7. Nepo very happy with his king at the center of the board. He says you don't really have anything here. And now queen to h3, reactivating the queen with tempo as the knight is now under attack. We have knight to e5 by Nepo, and queenside castles by Giri. We have d4, not worried about his king still being at the center of the board. He attacks that knight, pushes it back, knight to b1. Knight can also come to a4, also a very nice square, but Giri decides to go to b1, and now c5. Jan now wants to play c4, get the rook into the game, maybe even c3 at some point, so he likes his attacking chances. But here, Giri plays f4, puts pressure on the knight here, and now the knight needs to move. So here, and the problem is the knight needs to move to g6. However, here Jan played knight to c6, and this is already a pretty bad move, and the Giri takes advantage of this move in a very nice way. So feel free to pause the video here and try to take advantage of Black's, misplaced knight while I give you a couple of seconds. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on realizing why the knight had to come to g6. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's g6. That's the stuff. The knight had to be there to prevent this pawn push, and now with g6 we are weakening the e6 square, and this, if this opens up, then Black's position will be just ruined. So here, you don't really have much option. You have to do what Nepo did, castles queenside, and now Giri captures on f7. We have queen captures on f7, and now bishop to c4, piling up on that e6 pawn, and there's no good way to defend it. If you try to defend it with something like rook to e8, then f5 comes, and you now realize that everything is pinned. This is pinned and this is pinned, so you cannot capture because bishop captures queen. And here white would just get an, well, not that, white would just get an extremely strong pass pawn on e6. So instead, after bishop to c4, Jan just steps back with the king to b8, and now of course Giri grabs that pawn, bishop captures on e6, and in doing so creates a very strong passed e pawn, and it's it's going to be very hard to stop it. The f4 pawn also very nicely defended by the bishop, so Giri has everything covered. So queen to c7, getting the queen out of harm's way, and now bishop back to c4. We have king to a7 for a little bit more safety, and now knight to a3. The knight is now coming to c4, bishop to b3, knight to c4 is coming, but maybe in some weird cases, if this pawn disappears, ideas like knight b5 also become possible. So knight to b4, putting pressure on white's position, hoping that maybe maybe Giri would be interested in giving up this bishop, but of course not. So rook to e1, getting ready to push this past pawn, and bishop to e7 now. Jan needs to activate the dark square bishop somehow. King to b1, not allowing any knight jumps to come with check, so king is very safe here on b1, and rook to e8. We have e5 by Giri, and now bishop to d8, so shifting the bishop to d8 from f8, and now the rook is at least doing something. You can't push for the moment because the e5 pawn falls. So here, bishop back to b3, freeing up the c4 square for white's knight, and now, finally, as Nepo created the setup for it, g5 weakens the e5 pawn as the f4 pawn is under attack. And here, of course, if you capture, then rook captures here. Maybe it's possible to defend this. If rook captures, queen captures. The problem is this knight comes to c4, and it's again a very, very nice position for white. Very hard to play this for black. At some point, white will have to play a3, kick away this knight just to create some breathing room for the king, but for the moment, black has no way of taking advantage of this. So instead, after g5, immediately knight to c4. There's always time to do that, and now, of course, f5 is also the threat because now the e5 pawn is defended twice. So here, g captures on f4, bishop captures on f4, and now knight to d5. Just trying to centralize that knight. Also, the bishop is now under attack, but Giri once again just moves it back. Bishop to d2, the e5 pawn nicely defended. This knight cannot be moved from here. You don't have the b pawn. So queen to g7 now. And here comes knight to d6 by Giri, attacking the rook, attacking the bishop on b7, and not a lot to do here. So rook to h8, moving the rook with tempo. The queen is under attack, but now queen to e6. And again, there's a double attack on the knight here. The bishop is under attack. Everything is very nicely placed for white, and it's hard to find a move for Nepo. Well, you probably have to move the knight, something like knight to b6, then Giri would continue with a4, a5. He wants to move his a pawn either way, so it's going to be you know, a multi-purpose move. But here Nepo played bishop to h4. He put pressure on the rook on e1, but now it doesn't work. Here Giri played rook to c1, and there's even a forcing line that's kind of much better, but it requires too much calculating, and they were both very low on time. I will show it because it's a lot of fun, but starts with knight captures on b7. Point is, you give up the rook, bishop captures on e1. Now you go knight captures on c5. You threaten the a6 pawn, and there's no good move here. If black tries to defend it, then you just pick up the bishop here. You're up material, and you keep the attack. And if black tries to go for everything with capturing the piece, then you go queen captures on a6 with check, king b8, now queen b5 check, king a7, and you create a breathing square for the king. And now you just have a winning advantage. There's no way to play this. Even though black is up material, it's not going to do him all that much because the knight is being threatened here. For example, rook to d8, defending the knight. You can just pick it up and now go after that rook. Something like queen a6 check, king b8, queen b6 check, and now wherever the king goes, you're just going to give a check, pick up the rook, and then you're going to be up too much material. For example, king b8, queen captures here, and you're up 3 pawns, of course, completely winning. But it requires a lot of calculating, and that requires time, of course. So instead, rook back to c1. There's no rush here. And now knight to c7. Nepo brings the knight back, now attacking the white queen. Queen back to c4, and now queen captures on e5. But it doesn't help. Knight to f7, attacking the rook and the queen. We have queen to h2. And now comes queen captures on c5 with check. You could capture the rook, but there's no rush. Just queen captures on c5 with check. Eliminate all of black's counterplay. King to b8, and now even queen captures on d4. Not going for the rook. There's always time to capture it. It's not really doing anything, and we're defending the bishop here. So rook to f8 by Nepo, and now queen to f4 with a double attack on the queen and putting pressure on the knight here. So here bishop to g3 was played, but now Giri just trades. Captures, and here queen to b4, and it was in this position on move 41 that Jan Nepomniachtchi resigned the game. And after 5 draws, we have the first decisive game, which goes to Anish Giri with the white pieces, and now every little bit of pressure is on Nepo because now he has 2 games to bounce back and either try and just equalize the forced tiebreaks, or even win 2 games in a row and then take it all. So we'll see what's going to happen, but Now I think things are going to get pretty wild, as they've played the Sicilian both games on the second day, and I think the trend might continue. So I think we're in for a treat. Here we resigned because well, the knight is defended, the rook is hanging here, and there's no good move here. Well, if you try to move the rook c8, just knight d6. Now attacks for example, the bishop, threatening checkmate. The rook is under attack, and doesn't matter what you do, you're just going to lose. If queen f3 guarding checkmate, you just pick up the rook, and after captures, you're now up too much material. There's no even point in trying to play this. So after queen b4, Nepo resigned, and the first victory of the finals of the Magnus Carlsen Invitational goes to Anish Giri. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank George Pick, Stian Skjondal, Alex Nokvi Egison, and Cher for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Magnus Invitational, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.